Harold Kim Philby was once regarded as one of the most brilliant spies of British intelligence, MI6. He was intelligent, charming, had an impeccable background, and maintained numerous connections within the elite. Yet, for nearly 30 years, Philby was a double agent, secretly working for the Soviet Union. His betrayal not only shocked Britain, but also led to the catastrophic failure of numerous Western intelligence operations. Harold Adrian Russell Philby was born in 1912 in Ambala, British India. His father, St. John Philby, was an explorer, scholar, and advisor to the Arabian government. The Philby family soon relocated to England, where Kim attended Westminster School and later Cambridge University, two of the most prestigious institutions in the British education system. He was described as intelligent, composed, an avid reader, and inclined toward political issues. In the 1930s, as fascism rose in Europe and the global economy plunged into a deep depression, many Cambridge students began to turn to communism as a potential solution. Philby was among them. He joined leftist student groups and was gradually recruited by Soviet intelligence, the KGB. Alongside four other students, Donald Maclean, Guy Burgess, Anthony Blunt, and John Cairncross, Philby became part of the most notorious espionage network of the 20th century, the Cambridge Five. Philby was the most outstanding member of the group. He joined MI6, rising to its highest ranks, even being tasked with leading the unit dedicated to countering Soviet spies. Imagine this: the man entrusted with catching Soviet spies was himself a Soviet spy. Declassified MI5 files reveal the scale of his betrayal. Numerous operations destroyed, agents exposed, and many lives lost. Some sources estimate that his actions led to the deaths of hundreds of people. What sends chills down the spine is how he concealed it all. He was close with his colleagues, particularly Nicholas Elliott, an MI6 officer who considered him a brother. The Times once wrote that Philby dispelled suspicion with a smile. Philby's strength lay in his charm. He blended seamlessly into Britain's elite, drinking with officials, chatting with colleagues, all while secretly meeting Soviet contacts. MI5 files reveal that he lived under immense pressure. Each meeting was a risk, each message a gamble. Yet Philby seemed born for this game. BBC News called him a chameleon, capable of changing colors to fit any environment. He was not just a spy, but a master of deception. In 1951, when Maclean and Burgess, two members of his group, defected to Moscow, suspicion fell on Philby. Yet he escaped scrutiny. He was interrogated and investigated, but always prevailed, thanks to his eloquence and the trust of his friends. He even convinced Elliott, his longtime friend, of his innocence. After temporarily stepping back from intelligence work, Philby moved to Beirut, working as a correspondent for The Observer and The Economist. However, British intelligence continued to monitor him. In 1963, MI5 decided to take decisive action. The person sent to confront Philby was none other than Nicholas Elliott, his closest friend and the last person who might extract a confession. After that meeting, Philby vanished. He fled to Moscow, the city he had secretly served for years. In the Soviet Union, Philby was welcomed by the KGB, but not fully trusted. In his early years there, he lived under strict surveillance, unable to leave Moscow or freely interact with international media. He married for the fourth time to a Soviet woman, lived in a modest apartment, and began a new life as Britain's most famous defector. Kim Philby, Known for his charm and ability to move effortlessly within elite social circles, used these traits not only in his espionage work, but also in his personal relationships. His romantic life was shaped by his ideological convictions, his need to preserve cover, and the constant pressures of living as a double agent. He married 4 times, engaged in numerous affairs, and his relationships were often closely intertwined with his intelligence activities. Litzy Friedman, first wife, from 1934 to 1946.
Aileen Furse, second wife, from 1946 to 1957.
Eleanor Brewer, third wife, from 1959 to 1965. Rufina Pukova, fourth wife, from 1971 to 1988. In London, he was known for casual liaisons with colleagues' wives, which helped him cultivate an image of a carefree bachelor before his second marriage. In Beirut, before marrying Eleanor, he had an affair with a diplomat's wife, which MI5 later investigated as a potential security breach. These relationships often served dual purposes: personal gratification and strategic advantage in his espionage work. Philby's personal life was inseparable from his espionage. His marriages provided cover, deflected suspicion, and in some cases, notably with Litzy, directly facilitated his recruitment. His charm, described by the Times as disarming, Kim Philby, The Spy Who Fooled Us All, 1963, allowed him to maintain relationships despite the stress of his double life. However, his later years in Moscow, as detailed by Rufina and reported by BBC News, reveal a man haunted by isolation and the consequences of his choices. Lownie argues that Philby's lack of remorse, as expressed in My Silent War, contrasted with the emotional toll evident in his private moments, suggesting a complex interplay between ideology and personal cost. Philby never publicly apologized or expressed remorse. In his memoir, My Silent War, he maintained that he had no regrets about his choices, believing he had served an ideal he embraced in his youth. However, those who met him in Moscow later described a melancholic, alcoholic, lonely man, spiritually isolated from his homeland. He died in Moscow in 1988 at the age of 76. Soviet media reported that his funeral was held with full honors, but it remains unclear how he was truly regarded by those who had used him as a tool. In Britain, his name became synonymous with one of the most severe intelligence leaks of the 20th century, a shock that shook confidence in the entire national security system. The Cambridge 5 affair, with Philby at its center, remains one of Britain's most significant intelligence failures of the 20th century. The Daily Telegraph called it the greatest failure in the history of intelligence. Operations were destroyed, agents exposed, and trust among allies were shaken. Enjoyed the story? Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more incredible true tales from history and beyond. The story is built on verified and authoritative sources, including Kim Philby's own memoir, My Silent War, Ben Macintyre's investigative work, A Spy Among Friends, Andrew Lownie's research, The Cambridge 5, declassified documents from the British Domestic Intelligence Agency, MI5, and in-depth articles from reputable newspapers such as The Times, The Guardian, The Daily Telegraph, and BBC News.